Okay, welcome everybody to the April edition of the 3905 Century Club board meeting. I am Clay, WA6LBU chairman of the board. We will call the meeting to order and do a roll call attendance. Okay, this month we'll start with the first call area, Sammy.
First call area present, KAB1XP.
Second call area?
I don't see him yet.
Neither one is here. Third call area?
KE3HAY here.
Okay, fourth call area?
Here, K9GWS.
Fifth call area is here, WA6LBU. Sixth call area?
Sixth call area is here, WY6Ed.
Okay, seventh call area?
KE7RG, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Eighth call area? Nothing from eight. Ninth call area?
W9ROG, and my alternate's supposed to be here, but I can't tell on my burner phone who's all on here. Sorry.
He's here.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
10th call area?
AA0HF present.
Okay, DX?
VE3CMB and VA3YKT are both present.
Okay, thank you. One on top of each other on my screen.
Yeah.
President?
Present here, KL7OR.
Okay, Kirk is not here due to a wedding, hopefully not his own.
He did complete a proper proxy to assign it to KL7OR. KL7OR, do you accept that proxy?
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Vice President in proxy, KL7OR.
Okay, with that,
We also have the assistant from 7th areas here, in addition to the regular director. And we have a guest, N3WD.
And the assistant area director for fourth area, Dwight.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Dwight.
he's waving, and I will
Gotcha.
note that he's waving with all of his fingers. Okay, we'll go down to March minutes. Are there any corrections or questions on the minutes? With that, hearing nothing, we'll accept those by acclamation. Everybody agree?
Aye.
Everybody agrees. Okay, now down to the March financials. Any questions on those? Are there any questions or comments on the March financials? Okay, accepted by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
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 Reports. KL7OR did not do a paper report. Awards committee. I just will go. Is there any questions on any of the reports? Old business, we have none. New business, we have a motion 250401, adopt budget for operating year. Do I have a second on that motion?
VE3CMB will second.
Okay, got Craig on there. Discussion. Or I guess I will say, Gary, do you have anything you want to input?
No. I added a few things that aren't always on there just for reference, like the comparison of last year to the budget and also the reserve account information, which we haven't always put on there, but I added that so the board was aware of where we were on those things and where we'll be if the budget is, if we follow the budget, if the budget is exactly the same, where that reserve will be at the end of next year.
And it certainly is coming down, Gary.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It
I have
is.
a question
Go ahead, Dean.
for Eric. We've included a budget item for a payment to NetLogger, and I was wondering if you could give us some background of what
Sure.
we're.
Sure. And this is something we did in 2021 or 22 also. But so I'll just read what I read then, and folks can think about that. So basically, since June of 2016, the Century Club has benefited from the use of NetLogger as a service for net live logging. During that time, John Dean, K0JDD, and his organization, netlogger.org, have reliably supported live logging of thousands of our club nets at no cost to the club. Netlogger.org live logging service is supported only by donations to their NetLogger server support fund. So as one of the largest clubs consuming netlogger.org server resources, I mean, it's in our best interest to contribute to that fund to help defray their ongoing operational expenses. And I put $200 in there. What that comes down to is basically we run over 2,000 nets a year, somewhere around 2,200 on their server infrastructure. We put $200 and donate it to them this year. That's about 9 cents a net. We'd be helping defray their operating costs. So it's really a donation for operating costs of that server infrastructure. That's why I asked us to put in there. We've done it before. We've kind of averaged around that amount, maybe a little less since then, but inconsistently. So I asked Gary to put it in the budget so we could formally understand that and talk about it. Yeah.
I personally have no objection to doing it. However, our last donation, we received no response from the NetLogger people, and I felt that was, yeah, I'm not sure. I expected them to at least say thank you or something, but philosophically, yes, you're right. I mean, we do get a lot of benefit from it. So that's all I had. Uh-oh.
You have an alien that's in your background.
No, that's my proxy. It's his birthday today, by the way.
Okay. Gary, you have anything else to add?
No, I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay, let's. I was about to ask, is there anybody else who has any? Go ahead. Who is the question?
More.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Robin.
Is 200 enough?
I think if you look at kind of percentage of our overall budget and where we want to go, I'm okay with where it's at. The board can decide if they want to go up or down on it, but
okay.
Any idea of what their operating costs are?
No, we can estimate it. I mean, we basically use more than half of a full server, racked server that they have. So there are actual operating costs involved. I would expect them to be higher than 9 cents a net for the number of people and the number of network connections. So we're helping defray costs. We're not trying to support their operation.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if the $200 is so little, that's why maybe they didn't say thank you very much.
Well, the last time though, Wayne,
It was more.
$500. We sent them the last time we sent them money in 21 or 22. It was $500.
I will forward that email or that letter to you, Gary, so that you can see what we sent or what accompanied the donation. So
Okay.
right, we're asking. I think we're trying to show support, right, Eric?
That's right. Exactly.
We're not asking for anything more. We're not asking for changes. We're trying to show our support and pay our fair share. Maybe it's an attempt to, okay, but at least it keeps us going as a club.
And we're not freeloading on there. And we get a lot of other services like
Right.
integrated data flowing out of their own nets that support a lot of our operations. So it's great value for us.
Okay, any other questions on the budget? Okay, let's
I'll vote.
Okay, and it looks like the secretary has this set up. I should have done this backwards. I apologize. It's an even month, so we go backwards. So I will start the polling on this with the DX area.
So are you saying DX is backwards?
Yes.
No, I said
Yes.
DX and not XD.
DX area approves.
Okay. Thank you. 10th area,
AA0HF approves.
9th area,
Brian RG approves.
8th area not present, 7th area,
KE7RG approved.
okay, 6th area,
6th area, WY6N approves.
okay, 5th area approves WA6LDU, 4th area,
Approved. K9 GWS.
okay, 3rd area,
RD3 approves.
okay. Second area, did we have anybody? Nope. Okay, so show up. And first area,
First area approves KB1XP.
okay, vice president and president,
By proxy, Vice President approves and President also approves.
okay, that motion carries. We were supposed to have a net statistic discussion from W8NET. And he is not here. Let's see. Attachment. Scrolling through this to get the did everybody read the attachment of Gene's net check-in numbers?
Yep.
Pretty alarming.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and being part of the show.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. Okay, any questions on that?
Yeah, my only comment is, and we should probably have a deeper discussion when Gene is available. But the trends are what they are, right? I mean, we can see, and they're going down. What you don't really get out of it is why. And it's hard to draw any conclusions as to why from those numbers. And I think we need to do a little bit more work, or maybe a lot more work, to try to figure out why and see if things, see if there's some changes we could make that would make a difference.
I agree with that, Gary. Right, there's a lot of numbers here, but nothing's correlated that I can see yet. So I think I'm right. You're right. There should be more detailed analysis.
Yeah.
There's a hint from Roger.
Go ahead, Roger.
Hey, so I don't know how to put this. Okay, so you all know, and I've been through this before. I started with the club back when Dean did. And then because I had 100 watts and a vertical, I couldn't hear shit and people couldn't hear me. I got frustrated, like, what's his name up in Canada? And I just quit for several years. So it wasn't because of the nets per se. It was because of my equipment, I guess. So I don't know if you can really, say why people aren't coming to the nets. There could be a lot of different reasons that we're not going to know about. You know what I mean?
True.
Well, and Roger, I think you make a good point. I think we're looking for that silver bullet that will all of a sudden make our nets, twice as big. I don't think that exists. All right. I think it's a multitude of reasons. And, the best we can do is try to figure out what the biggest reasons are and try to do something about them. But, probably if you ask 10 hams why they joined our net and never came back, you get 10 different reasons. And so that's pretty hard to deal with. So
I just got a couple comments as well. How far? I don't recall. I did look at the spreadsheets. How far back did we go to, like 2020, 2021? His analysis, or was it before that?
We did 3 years, Sammy.
Okay, because the reason why I joined back around, I think it was around 2020, somewhere around there. I hooked up with the club. I found you. We were riding high with COVID. We were all shut in. And I'm thinking, did we get a big bump? If we look back 10 years, is it possible that the numbers are pretty much the same? Did we get a big bump due to COVID with everyone locked in and just have nothing else to do but hang out on the radio for a year or two? And now we're seeing that in decline.
Good point.
So when Gene approached me about the data, he said he wanted to go back to, I believe it was 2022, just to do the last few years. But he's willing to take that same aggregate and go back even farther. And we have data back to 2010. I'm not sure how valuable data prior to maybe 2015 would be, but I think that 10 years would be give us more data. I will say this: I tracked 75 meters probably through 2019, and the data that I captured, which was very crude, was very consistent with what is shown on the spreadsheet that Roger had produced. And I think that for me, looking at what, not Roger, with Gene, for me, really what we need to do is we need to study 75, because 75 is on the down. And I don't mean late net, I mean 75 is on the down. So we need to figure that one out for sure. But I'm willing to get more data. I mean, and I think that we all have an opportunity to give him feedback of where our concerns are and figure out, it's not going to be a silver bullet. We can't go back and ask people who checked in one time 5 years ago why they didn't check in a second time. I don't think, but I think that we've got data, and I think that we can try to use it to our advantage and figure out, do we need to make any changes? And I think I'm not putting any words in my mouth, but I think that's kind of where Gene was kind of headed. Is that here's the data, here's the results. Do we need to make a change somewhere? So we're not quite there to the change yet. So,
Amen.
It was by the way, it was very interesting data. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody really looked at it, but it was very interesting to look at. So,
hand up, Doug.
I play here and I play in POTA. One of the things that POTA does that is really cool, and I think it's responsible for its growth exponentially, is that all you have to do is upload logs and it automatically figures out all your awards. And that's a whole lot of work. But I wonder if our award application process is too cumbersome for the average Joe that comes in. Had it not been for my mentor, who happens to be here tonight, not because I asked him, I would have been totally lost coming to this. And as it was when I first started listening to Century Club in like 2016, I couldn't figure out what was going on at all. And I would have been, had I checked in, I would have been one of those drive-bys that disappears by the time somebody calls me.
Contact.
Go ahead, Keon.
Yeah. Really quick, just to kind of talk about 75. And Dean, I don't know if this is indeed everybody's issue. 75 is difficult because of real estate for some people. And younger people, specifically who live in townhouses, or in my case here, where the real estate is just not there for an antenna. I just got up a long wire that I might be able to make it, but that could be part of it. And unfortunately, a lot of what we're talking about when it comes to some of these issues is just simply beyond our control. And I think we need to keep that in mind. Some things we can manipulate, but then there are other things that we as a club, unfortunately, there's absolutely nothing that we can do about it. And in those cases, we kind of have to keep it moving. I don't think we need to dwell on those things that we simply can't fix. The things that we can manipulate, great. The things that we can't, we just got to keep it moving. So that's just something to consider too. 75 meters is a real estate issue, and for some people.
Well, Keon, if you look at the numbers, as you go from 40 to 75 to 160, the nets keep getting smaller. and that's because your antenna has to keep getting bigger. And yeah, so it makes it more difficult.
And there's a lot of variables, I think, as well. Like I did look at the data, guys. So there's a couple of things here. Going back a little further, certainly would, I think, give us a little bit of more of a bigger overarching picture. But as Sammy identified, and I never even thought of that, absolutely during the 21, 22 years, COVID certainly would have affected that. But you've also got to look at where we are in the sunspot cycle. And it would be interesting if some other club had some information as well, so we could see how their check-ins are going. Are they increasing or decreasing? I mean, POTA has come in, I don't know how many years ago, but it's certainly new, and it's certainly taking a lot of amateur radio operators are taking a very keen interest in it, and things of that nature may also be taking away from regular HF type check-ins nets that we have.
That's a good point. You can only spend so much time on the radio per day, right?
Yeah.
Blasphemy, Sammy.
Sorry, guys.
No, and I agree. And locally, and I'm going to use a term here that I'm not trying to offend anybody, but we have a significant amount of new hams who are considered preppers, and they're in it for one reason, and it would be when the doo-doo hits the fan, they want to be able to communicate. And some of them are not as personable and outward, more introverts, and may not be interested in our type of net. I got involved in it. I was a drive-by. I found the net, tripped over it, listened a few times, dove in, and have been a royal pain in the butt ever since. But I think amateur radio, the personality of amateur radio has changed even since I joined the club in 2009. I think there's a lot of things that have changed that are affecting what we're seeing.
Yeah,
Well,
and not even concepts like POTAs and stuff like that, but the different modes that are out there nowadays as well, right? An FT8 every time you turn around, and of course that's going to interest some, maybe not others, but by the same token, years ago, all those additional type of nets like POTA, all the different modes that we're talking about were not available. So the amateur radio community, had a little less to pick from. And I think that's got a big factor to play in all of this.
So you guys have probably heard me say this before. Maybe you're tired of hearing me say it. But the survey that we did 3 or 4 years ago, 95% of the people that join us on the net find us on the air. That's why I think that it's really important for NCSs not to let a lot of dead air happen during the pre-list, because if you're scanning by when there's dead air, you're not going to hear us. And so it's good to not have a lot of dead air. The second thing that the survey told us was the number one reason people said they didn't come back to the nets was they didn't have the time. And it takes a fair amount of time, to be on nets and then do the QSL cards and all that. Now we make QSLing easier, which I think is a major move forward. But those are that's what we heard 3 or 4 years ago from people who checked in and didn't check in a second time. So,
the other comment too, of piggybacking what Gary's saying, is that the bylaw committee has submitted to us the updated NCS guide, and one of the things that we're kind of discovering is that when we're on nets, and I'm not necessarily saying the board, but when we got active nets, and people ask how to become a member, and you start getting, well, you work state capitals, you work YLs, you work combos, whatever, and it just gets confusing for people. And the feedback that I gave to Gary is that we really need to focus on what is basic to getting the 100 point. And basic to getting the 100 point is working either 2x calls or a derivative of state capitals, and not go into the details of combos and the other thing. Because I think that once we can get them with their 100 point, I think we can get them to the next level. But I think they get kind of intimidated because we've got, 5 blocks on a 100 point application, and they're saying I need 100 points, and they count them, and some people can't count to hundreds, but that's here nor there. But we really need to keep this thing basic, and the problem is that we've got so many experts on AIM right now, and I've seen it over and over and over again, and they're passing way too complicated information to these news stations. Not all of them, but people asking questions. And I know that one of the ones that we finally got was this guy out of Texas or Louisiana, and he's asking good questions, and he's like 25 points towards his 100 point, but he's actively working on it. And I think it's because he got good information from a few people up front. And I think that that's something that we can do as board members. One of the nests is that we need to curb this and let's say, hey, look, it's really kind of basic. 20 or 100 points can be 20 contacts, or they can be 18 contacts in state capital or whatever. But I think we need to keep these things simple in simple terms, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, is that I think people find that they look at our word application and they think that it's intimidating. And
I agree with you, Dean, because I get a fair number of emails from people asking for help on how to fill out the application, and they just don't quite get it. And maybe that's something we should take a look at, is simplifying this 100 point application, because really, you can get your 100 points with 2-letter calls and state capitals really easily. And we've got a whole section on DX and YLs, combos, and it's like, why do we have to have all that stuff?
We need to have it there, but we need to focus on what is the shortest path to getting to having become a member. And I think once they become a member, then I think we can work with them. And I think the other thing too is and we've talked about this before, is trying to figure out how we can element some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the instructions for this 100 point, they're 2 pages long. And maybe at the top we should just say, hey, if you want to become a member, the easiest way to do it is get 2-letter calls and state capitals, and get enough of those to get your 100 points. So
I think on a positive note, I've noticed on the 40-meter late net that I've been on quite a bit, well, actually a lot. We've had quite a bit of a bumper crop of new check-ins. I mean, the other night, I think we had, within the last week or so, I noticed we had 4 or 5, maybe even 6 new stations checking into the 40 late. And, I think that's quite positive. I always try, as a 2x2, I always try to welcome them to the net, and I send a card, welcoming them to the net. And in many cases, they'll get a card back saying thanks for the warm welcome, things like that. Let's not forget that Debbie did a great job too, putting together the how to become a member video that we've recently uploaded to the YouTube channel. So if we can get some publicity for that, maybe that could help. I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, Gary.
No, it's okay, Sammy. I mean, I was pretty much done with what I had to say, but I mean, we can talk about this stuff sort of ad nauseum, but unless we get some more data, we're really just throwing darts at the dartboard, hoping that some will hit the bullseye. So,
agree.
Dean, I have a question.
Dean, did you hear that? Keon's got a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, is it going to be harmful if we consider taking the 75-meter net and moving it to less days of the week? I don't know if that's ever been kicked around, but less supply might get us more demand. Like, is that something that has ever been talked about, considered? Has anybody ever, kind of maybe put that in the works?
So Johnny, who is a coordinator for the 75-meter late net, put the late net on life support to two days a week, or much like we do the 20-meter net, where there's a holiday, we'll do it 3 days, because we weren't doing much, right? And it's the same reason why we close 160, is because by this time of year, we get 3 people, and they're the same 3 people, and we get new check-in. So why do we even do the effort to get maybe 1 check-in over the summertime? It's pretty much. Again, I'll go back to what I said before. It's looking at the data for the last few years. What I saw in 75 early is it is on the downside of check-ins rather than the upside. And I think we need to figure out why that is right now, okay? Because we need to at least keep it even, but we need to figure out why are we losing, or why are we getting less check-ins on 75? And I think the 40-meter nets are okay. I mean, Sammy said that, and I concur with him that the late net, well, it's a roller coaster ride. We're getting pretty decent check-in lists right now. And I'm, every time I check in, I at least get to work 1 or 2 people that are new to me. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really frustrating when you check into a net and everybody's, what's net logger, everybody's green or red, something. But anyway, you worked everybody. So, yeah. So, Ken, I think we need to take that data a little bit further. And I know Gary, who's kind of in the director seat of that, try to figure out what can we do. And again, you look at like the application, we say, oh, you go to the website and look at the 100-point, 2 pages of information that's sort of like, what are these guys doing? Kind of a thing. I can join Ole Miss and all I have to do is work, 1 or 2 people and I'm a member. So anyway, we'll get there. Okay. And I've asked, somebody suggests here, I've asked that we have a simplified 100-point application for new members, and I'll when we get to that point, I will get it sent back to Ben. He's always been a little opposed to doing something like that. So,
Doug had his hand up.
Yeah, I wonder if part of the problem around here, especially with younger people, with the 75-meter net not coming on until 10 p.m. local, and people now being required to show up at work in person again, and the work from home thing is pretty much over, especially with our government employee friends. And I wonder if that is causing problems, because the commute is such around here that you really have to get to bed early if you got to drive to work tomorrow morning.
I will get hold of Matt and have him provide us with another 5 years worth of data, and I'll send that off to Gene, and we'll see if that data changes at all. Okay, because we'll see what I guess what I'm saying is that we can see what the effect of COVID was. Did we have a big bump, and then we're falling off that bump, and that's why we're seeing a decline. So I really think we need to go back to 2016 with the data, because that'll give us a good picture. It'll give us a picture of it from 2016 to 2020. It'll give us COVID, and then it'll give us the last 4 years. So, and I'll take that and run with it.
Okay, I agree.
But what I would say to that, and I don't want to prolong this, but if you look at the 40-meter late data that Gene sent out, 40-meter late is actually bumping up a little bit, and that doesn't come on until midnight. And most of our check-ins are on the East Coast. So I'm not sure time is really the key here. I think what Keon talked about is probably the most difficult part. Plus, 75 meters for a while now has been very noisy and very difficult to call, and very short. And so I think all of those things can have an impact. So
solar cycle, right?
Yeah. Well, 75 is usually worse at the top of the cycle, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So is 160.
Big time.
Okay. Eric.
And the only other thing I add to Doug's comment is I heard the East Coast net kind of thing coming out too. We have to be careful. I mean, looking at the numbers, we'd want to encourage farther west check-ins and bring more folks from the West Coast in. And the earlier we move the late nets or the early nets, the worse that gets for propagation. So we just have to be thoughtful about that too.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to adjourn. I don't know about you guys.
Okay. I agree.
We can continue talking, but I think the meeting's over, unless there's something else on the agenda. I didn't.
We just went into new business, and Dean had some comments some information for us on new business.
Oh, I have one more thing
I
too.
just got a couple of announcements here. I'll make it real quick. Last fall, during the coronation of N8BF as master, he contacted me and he inquired about club historian, and I said I'd love to talk about it. And he said, "Well, let me give you a call when we get back, or when I get back from my trip." And he got a hold of me. So I basically will be moving him into the position of club historian effective today, unless I hear any complaints or disagreement. And he is going to basically try to take it to the next level and try to get our data kind of collected in a centralized location off of home servers, off of home machines, onto a central place, so that it'll be there for eternity. Okay. What's that?
Who is going to do that?
Byron.
Byron and N8BF.
Yeah, N8BF. Okay. The second thing is that, and Gary can, if you want to go ahead and do it, there's going to be a change in the fourth area.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and mention because Dwight. I think Dwight's still. Is Dwight still here?
Yep.
Oh yeah, there you are, Dwight. You moved around on the screen here on me. So Dwight is moving to Texas, and so he's can no longer be the fourth area assistant director. So first off, I want to thank Dwight for his service. He's been invaluable to me from time to time when we've worked on some difficult issues. So I really want to thank you for your service, Dwight, and all the help you gave me during the last 3.5 years or so. And we found somebody to replace Dwight, who I think will be a good addition. Dave Alpha India 4 Kilo will be the new assistant area director. So.
And the third piece I have is kind of dovetails with the conversation we had, is that we are going to be looking for a new 40-meter late, or a new late net coordinator over the summertime. So I asked the directors to let me know, and you've got any inspiring people that might like to move in that position. You know, Johnny's done a good job, but Johnny's going back to school, and he's just not going to have the time to do the job. And when I asked him to do that coordinator position, I knew that it was only going to be for a year, and I think he's done a good job. I think that we all have a responsibility to tell him that he did a good job, you know, as we move forward. But I need help. I really do, and I would really love to get something west of the Mississippi, but it's tough because we just don't get the check-ins. But I'm open to anything. The last piece is that Bob W5UOT contacted me last week, and he said my situation has changed back, and I will, if you want me, I will continue to be the Century Club Chairs chairman. I said absolutely, and so he will continue the role that he had as Century Club Chairs. He did a really good job, and I know that I worked with him on a couple of really difficult situations that resulted in silent keys, but he was on top of it, and that's basically the president's report. Any comments?
Okay, hearing nothing. Now we have a question and answer with directors and officers. Do we have anything? I guess open it up to the gallery. Any questions?
VA3YKT, I do have a couple of things I'd like you to add to your discussion on why the nets are getting a little bit down. I remember I'm beginning to think that I joined before I joined this organization. I was a partner in Ole Miss as well as NADA, and it wasn't rare to have on Ole Miss 120, 130, 140 on some nights consistently. And NADA used to be up around 60 or 70. And I've noticed that when I look at their nets in the evening, because I tend to check them, they're also down in having membership attend. Both of those nets, and including NADA, which in the early nets, some of those people, as soon as they're finished, pop over to our net. And I'm okay. I mean, I'm okay with that sort of stuff. But it does indicate that some of them consistently have repetitive people. And on our early net, because I attend that more than I attend the late net, I notice that very often they will come in, they'll be there, and when you get a new station that comes in, he might have to wait quite a while before he gets either a call out or gets a chance to participate. And I think that, I mean, it struck me sometimes that those people, when they're new like that, they perhaps at one stage giving them an early call might help in that direction. Just to encourage them to stay on the net and listen for other calls that are coming in. So that might be something you'd want to consider. And it's just that I find that these things over the last 3 or 4 years have been kind of cyclical in nature. They have an awful lot, and then you tend to calm down, and then your nets come up. It seems to be part and parcel of what happens on most other nets also. Any comments?
So John, we tried a while ago to put the new check-ins right after Masters and DX to give them a call. It didn't seem to make any difference. And if you watch now, when we get to a lot of the news stations, because a lot of news stations are trying to figure out what we're doing. All right. So a lot of the news stations will either take a pass, and I don't force them to take a turn because I don't want to intimidate them. I think that's something we can do to run people off. But a lot of them will take a pass or say, hey, I'm just going to listen and try to figure out what you guys are doing. I think the most important thing is they get a call, not get a chance to make one because they're still a little shaky. But if they get a call, it'll start to get them a little bit more involved. And I think we have to consciously focus on trying to call those news stations to try to get them involved. And what tends to happen on the net is that if we've got one station that people can hear pretty well, a news station people can hear pretty well, and he comes back, everybody calls that station, and the rest of them sit there. And so some of what we might try to do, because a lot of times I don't need another Texas contact, so maybe I should try somebody else. And I think that's one of the things we can do to try to encourage these new folks to engage.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think sometimes the focus of an awful lot of people calling the same station, especially if it's a new station, it's kind of overwhelming for those people.
Yes.
I remember the first days that I got on, everybody came at me and I didn't even have time to write them down. I was just accepting anything going, and I was just constantly looking at the meter to give them some sort of a signal report and hoping to heck that they wouldn't ask for confirmation somewhere because I didn't have, like my notes were not that consistent. It was just one call after another. So I do understand, and from their point of view, that's kind of overwhelming a little bit. If you can find a way to space that out, and it's hard because in some members, and you're absolutely right, I don't need another Texas station. I've got about 35 of them in there. But when it's the only white line that I have, you know, I would have to take a pass on something like that. And I'm willing to do that as a member. But an awful lot of people don't want to do that. They want to get a new card, or they want to get a new contact in. So I do understand it's a bit of a quandary, but I just want you to understand also that I find some of these things are cyclical. You're down today, you'll be up tomorrow. Tomorrow, maybe, you know, a year from now, or 6 months from now, 3 months from now, but it tends to be cyclical. And I notice there's quite a layover. I mean, you get Paul coming over, you get a couple of other stations that come over. I know ODI is also on NATA prior to coming to our net. So it's good to have those people come in, and if they're willing to do 2 nets, that's great. But it also tells me, or at least indicates to me, that they're on the other net. They've probably consistently had an awful lot of red lines on that net, so they're trying to find a new contact on our net. So I'm hashing some of these things around in my head, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, we're not doing so bad, to be honest with you. We're consistently around 35 to 40 people, sometimes a little more. I'm not on the late nets because I have a wife who has a lead pipe for a rolling pin, but it's difficult for me to be up that way. I'd love to be on that net, but consistently. But I'm lucky if I can make it every once in a while.
So John,
and she's pretty good about that.
So John, I had a net either this week or last week, and we had a new station check in. New station check in, and I would say on the average, it took them anywhere from 90 seconds to 2 minutes to complete a contact, and everybody wanted to work him because he was a new station and everybody heard him.
Right.
And we continually had to educate him on signal reports, and it just happens, okay? It you know, it delays things. If we had nets that didn't have new stations, we would just sail through them. but we have these new stations and we try our best.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Kurt, I guess it was last night, on the 40-year late net. And I mean, I hate to pick on Mark, but he gave Mark a good opportunity to make his contact. He came back and said it's not going to work, and he went on, and he shortened that time frame. And I think that we have some techniques that we need to continue to work on as net control stations. And it's fresh with me because I received here a couple of weeks ago a draft from the bylaw committee of the new NCS guide, and it just sort of raised a lot of things for me. Is that there's some things that we can do better, okay? And I'm going to strive over the next few months to try to do that. So yeah. I think we're making progress. I wish I could say that we could reduce it by 50%. I don't know, but I think there are some things that we can do. Little things like I was on a net 2 weeks ago, and NCS stopped about every 3 or 4 calls to look for check-ins, and that's really against our existing policies, let alone any new policies. But it really slowed things down, and we need to fix that. And unfortunately, the rule is, if the moon is here and the stars are here and whatever it is, that you do this. And we need to kind of bring that back in. Eric's laughing.
Yeah,
he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, back to a little.
We're working on it. Okay.
Yeah. No. And the other side of that coin, Dean, to be honest with you, is your net controllers do a damn good job. Really good job. Right. They have the patience of an angel, because I would have flown off the bat a long time ago. But some of these calls are stretched out like that. Some of the cases are pretty special. And not to labor the point, but Mark has certain things that don't, how can I put this without sounding crude, that are challenging for him. And then NCS take their time with them and work with them as much as they can. And I do understand that the rest of the groups kind of finds that a little bit challenging sometimes to listen there. I sit there and I do the same thing. I go, oh my God, this is going to be a 20-minute session. But overall, I think your NCS group, the people that you've got running those nets, do a darn good job, especially with newcomers. And I do give them full credit for that. And with that, I'm foaming off at the mouth, so I will turn it back to you.
John, I agree with you. We've got some really, really good NCSs, and we've got some really trying times with propagation. Just another example on my net this week. At the top of the hour, I heard a station at easily a 5.9, and when the net started and things started rolling on, he was down to about a 4.4, and about 20 minutes later, he was barely a 2.2. It happened. I mean, the band. So again, it's that solar cycle right now. But anyway, yes, our NCSs are doing good, and I ask you if you think they're doing good, drop them an email and say, hey, I appreciate the great work on the net last night, blah 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 blah, and boost them. So yeah,
awesome. With that, I will mute my mic.
Sammy,
can I ask a question?
Sammy and then Bill.
Okay, since we're on this topic, I just want to, how do I put this, Dean? Be careful what you wish for with us. I understand you'd like to streamline the nets. I totally understand that. But if we have 20 or 25 check-ins and we get through it in 20 minutes versus if we take our time and, get as many check-ins as we can and it takes an hour, let's all just keep in mind, if we're not on the air, they're not going to find our nets and we're not going to grow the membership. So I'm just trying to say, we don't want to shorten the nets so much that we're not on the air. I guess that's just
that's not that. I apologize for trying or for giving you that impression. What I'm saying is that there are things that we can do better. Okay, and I'm not saying that they're going to be life changing or anything else, but again, for me in reading with depth the revision of the NCS guide, I've got some areas that I think, well, we're doing okay, but we can step it up. Okay, and I'm not saying we make any major. I'm not asking to make any changes. I'm just saying is that, for example, the thing that I talked about check-in, I have over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have said, I'm going to see what happens when I do this and I follow this particular area, and that is midway through. Like in a net of say 20 check-ins, you stop after in the middle and ask for check-ins, and then you the end. And then the other one was taking check-ins without hearing anybody on air. And I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong to check somebody into a net when NCS doesn't hear them on the air.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, that's just those are just little things. But no, we're not going to make any major. We're not looking to make any major changes. We're just looking to kind of clean things up. So I apologize that you got that reaction from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question about check-ins. If you have 20 people in the net, and after 10 you ask for check-ins, and you get a 21st and a 22nd, they get a call that round. But if you get to the 22nd guy and you ask for check-ins and you get 23, 24, 25, they don't get a turn that round, and they have to wait until the end of the next round. Why?
Who said that?
Doug.
Who said that? No. Who's telling you that?
It's what happens.
No,
I hear them take check-ins after the last call, and then they say, "Okay, let's go back to the top of the list." And they often don't give those people a chance for a call.
You never.
I did hear them give somebody.
Doug, you never do, because that's not what the rules say. After the first round ends and you take additional check-ins, you go back to the top of the list, and they have to wait until the end of the list. And I think that's actually a good rule, and here's why.
Yeah.
We will have people timing the nets to check in at the last second so that they don't have to sit there for an hour. And that's not good for the nets. That is not good for the nets.
I will give you Doug, I will give you the exception. The exception is, and I do this, and I've seen other NCSs do this, and it happens more in the late nets than it does the early nets, is that when NCS determines that he's going to wind things up, okay, typically what he does is he calls for numbers, and that is he calls for anybody who wants another check-in, and then he asks for anybody else that wants to check in, and if somebody else wants to check in, then for me, I give that person their call. But I don't do it during the normal rounds of the way I'm processing nets. It's strictly when I'm trying to wind things down and get the next close where I get a check in and I acknowledge them. So
Okay.
So,
Bill?
Gary answered my question by saying,
Oh,
when they
sorry.
get those check-ins, they've gone to the top of the list and get the check-ins before they start. And that's okay. I understand that.
Yeah, that's the end of the round, because I know we've run into the situation before where a person, there's two people left to make calls. They want to check in, they check them in, and then they get their call. And as soon as they get the call, they check out.
right.
Yeah.
They're not giving, they want to get a call so they can get a contact in the car, but they don't want to give the other people an opportunity to contact them. So when you get to the end of the round, you say it's the end of the round, you look for check-ins, and then you go back to the top of the list and work it again.
Doug, let me answer the question differently, and I'll tell you what my practice is that let's say that we have 30 check-ins, and let's say at line 20 I ask for check-ins, and I don't get anybody, right? The next part of the net that I will accept check-ins is when the round is over, I've read the reminders and I've asked for check-ins, because I don't take check-ins on the fly, because typically I can't hear them. I just don't do it. And
Okay.
I think that is a practice, because 20 years ago we had that problem and we solved it. And we didn't have any automated system, but we said that we have this thing called the line. And we don't have the line anymore, but we had a line. And anybody below the line is automatically to the next round.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of some of the old timers still do that. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned about people checking out, and I can't tell you, I was after a Ben Franklin state, and they were in the net every night, but they checked in much earlier than I did. They would be number 15 and I would be number 30 or 40. Mm-hmm. And they would check out before it came to be my turn. And I always wanted to call them. And it took me like weeks. I finally got up early enough and got the radio on and checked in before them so I could call them.
Good job.
Yep.
I think Bill had something to say.
Yes. Okay. Bill, thanks for being patient.
No problem. I know it's on the propagation thing, but something to keep in mind and be interesting to look at. These last two solar cycles have been totally different from each other.
Yes.
The one before was very weak, to say the least. Okay. And it didn't have nearly the storms that we had solar-wise with this one. This one's been a very strong and long cycle. Just hope it keeps going. But it's also been very, very active. And there's been a lot of flares. And it's almost like daily the last week, it's like something's hit and propagation's gone to hell. So the real question is, when you look at some of these, is when you say look at your numbers, I really do believe, and I think you've said it, you got to look at bottom of the cycle versus top of the cycle. And I also say that a lot of people that may be on the nets are out chasing DX and other things because bands are open now that won't be open in a few years for quite some time. So, things to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Sammy is a good reporter of the sunspot problem that we've got. He's constantly posting on anyone who's on nets. Flares are occurring and things like that. And then you're sort of going, oh, that's why things are so lousy tonight.
Let's not forget the K index.
I just pulled it up when Bill was talking. There's a storm going on right now.
Yeah.
And remember, summer really sucks for 75. It gets noisy as hell because of just normal thunderstorms and stuff.
We can't hear DX, but we can hear their thunderstorms in Europe. Thank you.
That's exactly right.
So, okay,
Motion to adjourn.
let's get her done.
Second.
Okay, second, we're done.